Okay, this is Kathy. I'm back from my break and I'm going to pick up where I left off. And I was reading this article from Education Next. How do we transform our schools? And saying that could make learning fun. Computers offer a way to customize instruction, less expensive. So I had put down the information about the expense, how you could save money, which is, I think, one of the huge benefits for doing online classes. For all these reasons and more, taxpayers spent more than $60 billion to equip schools with computers in just the last 2 decades, and yet the machines have made hardly any impact. Close that out. Okay. As Stanford professor Larry Cuban has documented, computers have merely sustained how schools already operate. Computers typically sit quietly unused in computer labs and in the back of classrooms. True, students do research on the internet. They type up reports using word processing. They might even construct multimedia presentations with them. Teachers sometimes use them to present content, and schools teach skills, but computers have fundamentally transformed the way learning is accomplished, have not fundamentally transformed the way learning is accomplished or how the classroom operates. Computers do not deliver instruction. The teacher is still at the center of the classroom, and research shows that students who have access to computers in school don't necessarily perform better on standardized exams. The schools have gotten little back from their investment. Virtually every organization does the same thing schools have done when implementing an innovation. An organization's natural instinct is to cram the innovation into its existing operating model to sustain what it already knows. This is the predictable course, the logical course, and the wrong course. Okay, I'm going to take that. I'm going to just do this paragraph. And put it in my notes. Oops. What am I doing here? Close that. Put in my notes. Copy so I know where I got it from. Okay. I think that's interesting because it just validates everything that we've been talking about, that what a lot of schools do is they buy the technology, give it to the teachers, and then just expect that this metamorphosis is just going to happen, not that, and they're not taking into consideration that the teachers are going to teach the way they feel comfortable, that they've had prior success, instead of taking a step out there and figuring it out on their own. So there's a lot of uncertainty out there. And so, like it says, they just cram the innovation into what they're already doing. And so the technology really is not changing education at all. So let's see what they say we should do. The way to implement an innovation so that it will transform an organization is to implement it disruptively, not by using it to compete against the existing paradigm and serve existing customers, but to let it compete against non-consumption where the alternative is nothing at all. Wow. That seems kind of brutal. I don't know if I can go along with that, but let's see what it says. The disruptive innovation theory. To convey what we mean, we first need to explain what disruption is. In every market, there are two trajectories: the pace at which technology improves and a slower pace at which customers can utilize the improvements. Customers' needs tend to be relatively stable over time, whereas technology improves at a much faster rate. Products and services that are initially not good enough for the typical customer ultimately pack in more features and functions than customers can use. We call innovations that sustain the leading company's trajectory in an industry sustaining innovations. Some are dramatic breakthroughs, while others are routine. Airplanes that fly farther, computers that process faster, and televisions with incrementally or dramatically clearer images are all sustaining innovations. Importantly, it does not matter how technologically challenging the innovation is. As long as the innovation helps the leaders make better products that they can sell for better profits, they figure out a way to do it. On occasion, however, we see a disruptive innovation. A disruptive innovation is not a breakthrough improvement. Instead of sustaining the leading company's place in the original market, it disrupts that trajectory by offering a product or service that actually is not as good as what companies are already selling. Because the disruptive innovation is not as good as the existing product or service, the customers in the original market cannot use it. Instead, the disruptive innovation extends its benefits to people who, for one reason or another, are unable to consume the original product, so-called non-customers. Disruptive innovations tend to be simpler and more affordable than existing products. This allows them to take root in simple, undemanding applications within a new market or arena of competition. Here, the very definition of what constitutes quality and therefore what improvement means is different from what quality and improvement mean in the original market. Because the definition of performance is so different and the industry leaders' customers cannot use the product, those companies have a difficult time in implementing disruptive innovations. Little by little, the disruption predictably improves. New companies introduce products that, for them, are sustaining innovations along their trajectory, and at some point, disruptive innovations become good enough to handle more complicated products and take over. And the once leading companies with the old line products go out of business. A few examples illustrate how this happened time and again. Where does it talk about schools, though? Okay, here we go. How should computer-based learning suppliers transform schooling? They must introduce the technology to compete with non-consumption. When Sony introduced its first transistor pocket radio, it sold them to teenagers who had nothing at all. When Apple introduced its early personal computer, the device was not good enough to compete against the mainframes and mini computers of the time, so Apple didn't try to compete head-on. It sold the personal computer as a toy for children. Ultimately, the personal computer disrupted the market for larger computers. When Toyota entered the U.S. market, it didn't start by attacking Ford and General Motors with the Lexus. Toyota introduced a crummy Corona that was cheap enough to allow people who could not afford the Ford and GM vehicles to buy cars. Toyota gradually improved its products and has now surpassed Ford in the U.S. market. GM, too, sees Toyota in the rearview mirror. At first glance, there appears to be little non-consumption of education in the U.S. since students are required to receive schooling. Looking deeper, however, reveals many pockets of non-consumption where students would be delighted with computer-based learning rather than the alternative, nothing at all. So I want to put some notes in here about disruption. Disruption means to introduce the innovation to someone who has nothing at all, not to someone who already has something that works. I guess that's what I'm getting, so let's see. Take advanced placement courses for starters. According to a 05 report by the National Center for Education Statistics, 33% of schools nationwide offered no AP classes in that year. Those that do provide AP courses today only offer a fraction of the 34 courses for which AP exams are available. Because they lack the resources to hire more AP teachers, or there's not enough student demand to justify, but there are many individual students who want to take AP classes for whom computer-based learning would be a welcome option. Credit recovery is another big opportunity. For many students who fail a class, there is no remedial option available. This creates big problems for students moving forward towards graduation, as well as a market for such an alternative. Among the emerging players is Apex Learning, a for-profit company. Apex started off by offering AP courses online. In 0304, there were 8,400 enrollments in their AP courses. By 06-07, that number was 30,000. Wow. A compound annual growth rate of over 50%. Apex has expanded to credit recovery by offering online core classes as well. Over its history, Apex has more than 1 million enrollments and served over 4,000 school districts. Smaller, rural schools are another example of non-consumption. Because of limited resources, including numbers of teachers and students, those schools struggle to offer breadth in the curriculum. Regulations in No Child Left Behind that require districts to have highly qualified teachers in each subject have further constrained these schools' offerings. As a result, there are many classes that are not taught and many students who would treasure the opportunity to take them. Many advanced courses, those math courses that follow algebra and geometry, honors English classes, and science courses more advanced than general biology, are missing in thousands of schools. A 07 report indicated that more than 25% of high school students attend schools that make no advanced courses available to them at all. More than 25 states now have organizations providing web-based courses. Utah's electronic high school started up in 1994 and has expanded rapidly. 1/3 of Utah high school seniors last year had taken a class online. In Florida, the virtual school has also been a leader in the field. From its small beginnings in 97, it served 52,000 students in 92,000 individual course enrollments in 06-07. The Georgia Virtual School, which opened in 05, has 4,600 students enrolled by the 06-07 school year. One other sizable market for computer-based learning is homeschooled and homebound students. The number of homeschooled students was almost 1 million in 1999. Homeschooling groups now estimate the number has risen to 2 million. There are also many students who cannot attend any or some of the school day for a variety of reasons. For them, even simple forms of computer-based learning can help ensure that they don't fall behind. So, beginning from this, reader notes. So, some success has been shown when online courses are offered for AP classes that are not offered at the high school. Credit recovery, higher level classes that require highly qualified teachers who the school does not have. So AP, higher level, credit recovery. Okay, so back to when a new approach or technology substitutes for the old, the pace almost always follows an S-curve as depicted on the left side of figure 3. Where's figure 3? So, percentage students online, and so then it projected, okay? The initial adoption is very slow, and then at some point the world flips and the substitution proceeds rapidly. The problem is that S curves are sometimes steep and other times gradual, so it's hard to know when the rapid adoption will begin. But there is a way to forecast the flip. First, one must plot the percentage of market shares held by the new divided by the old. So there's some math. Okay. We'll plot the education data for online learning over the traditional approach. The data since 2000 falls on a straight line, as shown on the right side of Figure 3. According to that council, online enrollments in 2000 were 45,000. They had grown 22 times by this most recent year to roughly a million. About 70% of these enrollments have been in high schools. Even with this rapid percentage growth, however, online courses accounted for just 1% of all courses in '07. If one projects linearly in the future based on data through the year 2007, it would appear that not much change on the horizon. But when viewed from the logarithmic perspective on the substitution curve graph, the data suggests that in about 6 years, 10% of all courses will be computer-based. Okay, well, that's projecting though. Economically, while estimates may vary depending on circumstances, many providers have costs that range from $200 to $600 per course, which is less expensive than the current schooling model. For computer-based learning to continue its disruptive march into education, legislatures must not fall into the trap of allocating the same per pupil funding to computer-based learning that the school districts receive. So another idea is don't use the same funding that is currently is used per pupil. And why? What do they suggest? For computers alright, the reason disruptions rely on asymmetric motivation, in this case, gradually taking on courses that the incumbent is relieved not to do and happy to hand off. Directly targeting a school district's funds evokes a competitive response that clamps down on innovation, and technologically, a computer-based learning has the potential to scale quality with a relative ease, a dramatic advantage. Computer-based learning has another technological advantage that is crucial to its expansion. One can customize it to meet different students' needs, which is huge for right now because it's not so easy to customize in the classroom. And you can customize easier when you're online. Currently, according to reports, computer-based learning works best with the more motivated students. Over time will become engaging and individualized to reach different types of learners. If growth continues, it will be because computer-based learning itself will have improved to better meet these different needs. So, okay. The current commercial system moves through 5 steps: the writing of concepts, the adoption of decisions, the delivery of the content by teachers, some individual help from teachers, assessment. Most crucial stages that determine what learning products reach students are the first 2. In the first step, people delineate the concepts and methods that schools will teach in textbooks and other instructional tools. The economics of the textbook business are scale intensive. The fixed costs of writing, editing, and setting up to print and bind a book are the same, whether 1,000 or 1 million copies are sold. This means textbook companies benefit by selling to a large monolithic audience. Customization in their business is not desirable. At the second step, committees at the district and state level make decisions about which of these textbooks to adopt. Again, this step is far more amenable to large-scale product. Curriculum experts who make these selections tend to be trained in the dominant pedagogical paradigm that the field, so consciously or not, they tend to pick books that match the dominant paradigm. Furthermore, administrators have centralized their decision-making process out of concern for quality and cost. With a full district or state behind decision, administrators can negotiate better prices for a uniform district-wide product. They realize that no single text can be effective for each student because different students learn differently, but they can ill afford to have thousands of different texts, each paced to the style and skill level of individual student. Forced to choose a single text for all students to use, the best they can do is find a one-size-fits-as-many as possible solution. Admittedly, textbook publishers pack in features to appeal to different types of learners, as they hope to reach as a broad range with textbooks where many a student drags home a pack full. Okay. Disruption tends to be a two-stage process. Those who initially create the alternative can sell the new products, as technically, to illustrate why the existing, okay. A new chain will likely emerge to disrupt the old. Where might this take place? The education software business will have to develop a disruptive distribution channel to reach students. To get an idea of what this might look like, think about the transformation currently happening in the pharmaceutical business. Historically, companies marketed drugs to doctors and hospitals by professionals to professionals who are most highly qualified to judge the efficacy and economics of the alternative therapeutics. This is very similar to how companies have sold textbooks. Anyone who watches TV now, however, sees a dramatic shift taking place in the way companies market drugs. Increasingly, companies are marketing drugs to the patients themselves in the hopes that they will then call their physicians and ask for a prescription. That is interesting. It does show up on TV all the time, and it tells you, what it can help you with, and don't remember seeing drug commercials until just recently. Why is it happening? One reason, of course, is that doctors are becoming so busy that more and more of them simply can't make time during their day to see the company sales reps. Perhaps a more profound reason, however, is that many patients are in better touch with their personal health than we've given them credit for. Sometimes learning of the availability of a solution to a problem helps the patients diagnose the problem themselves, and then they can tell their physician about it. And that is personally me and my husband, with the things that's going on in our lives right now. We do a lot of research on the internet to kind of find out what's going on and talk to other people that have maybe had the same medical experiences that we are, to see what they've done, what was suggested, what worked. And so no longer are we just going into the doctor blindly and just going along with what they're saying. So um, I like that idea. Similar solutions will emerge for education software in the big areas of non-consumption outside of school, like personal tutoring, homeschooling, and after-school programs. A student struggling with a certain concept, or her parent or teacher, will be able to log onto a website where they can find a software solution that another student, parent, or teacher developed for that specific challenge. By means of such sites, students will teach students, parents will teach parents, and teachers will teach teachers. Parents and teachers, moreover, will be able to diagnose why children are not learning and find customized instructional software written to help students who closely match their child learning style. As content is used over time, users will rate it. As they rate books on Amazon and movies, that will not happen en masse until the technology has matured. But as it does, people will gradually link together various modules to form more comprehensive classes. And then end users will pull this content rather than have school systems push it to them from on high. With users building the content and using open source tools, the software will be far less expensive. Okay, no one knows for sure what it will look like in the future, but if the path we are on continues, 10 years from now, we're likely to have a completely different discussion about the impact computers have on schooling and learning. The only way to get to that point, however, is by not repeating the mistakes from the past. Pitting computer-based learning directly against teachers or continuing to cram it in schools will not work. Producers of computer-based learning software must introduce it disruptively by letting it compete against the non-consumption initially. And software makers must customize the software for different learning types while other entrepreneurs find new channels to reach them. If all this happens, those who have extolled the benefits of computer-based learning might finally be able to see its promise materialize. Interesting. I like these ideas. I like that. And one that was written in the summer of 2008. Okay, so not quite sure what I do with that, but it's education for me. Had to move to a new computer, so I got to create my week 7 again. Put that in there. So this one sounded interesting. Snow days turn into e-learning days for some schools. In what is proving to be an uncommonly chilly and snowy winter, thousands of schools across many states have been forced to close their doors, often for days at a time. Although a lot of students have surely tossed their books aside in favor of sledding or video games, some schools are seizing on e-learning as a way to keep up educational momentum. Under an Ohio law that took effect this year, for example, districts that max out on calamity days can use up to 3 e-learning days. That's interesting. So, copy that. Go in and up to 3 e-learning days to meet state class time requirements and avoid having to tack extra days on the end of the school year. It's much better to have a day of e-learning instruction right now than if we held a makeup day when the weather's nice. It's hard to keep kids focused at that time of year. Meanwhile, code teachers of an advanced placement calculus class in Granville, where school has been called off for 7 days so far this winter, are posting assignments online as well as instructional videos to keep students on track. When you teach an AP class, there's a target day in May when everyone takes the test. I have every day planned. We know we need to be so far by a certain date. Okay, and where school's canceled for, already I've lost 5, okay. I had a surprise week-long break from classes when the district called for snow days. Okay, meanwhile, hundreds of students in Atlanta left stranded, okay. So those snow days certainly can be as disruptive to a school's schedule. A new study from Harvard finds that they don't seem to have a negative effect on students academically, at least when looking at results on statewide assessments. Ugh. Okay. How can it not if you're out of school? But, all right. The study issued in January found no correlation between student achievement and snow days based on analysis of test scores. Just having to push a lesson back one day is not very hard to do. What's harder to deal with is when 5 out of 25 students are missing because of weather. I have that problem exactly when it's a weather day and we were open. If I didn't have at least half of my class, then I changed what I was teaching that day, because then I would still have to reteach it again. So I've had about 4 days, I would say, since January where the school was open, but I didn't have half of my class, and so I had to do some alternative things with my students, so I'm dealing with that myself. Mr. Goodman's research did find a negative effect on test scores on moderately snowy days when schools stayed open, but some students were absent on test scores. That's interesting. I wonder how how he did his study. When just some students are absent, teachers have to take time from the next day to help those students catch up. However, a 2008 study of Maryland public schools came to a different conclusion. It found that as snow days accumulated, they did have a negative effect, particularly at the elementary level, on student performance on state reading and math assessments. It found, for instance, that in years with a high level of unscheduled closures, more than 5% fewer students would pass. I can believe that. I believe that. Um, so, what are e-learning days? The state requires district teachers to post lessons and assignments online to complete during the snow day. They have up to 2 weeks, though, to complete such an assignment. That is an important qualification for students who may lack access to a computer, or if they experience a power or internet outage. In some cases, the teacher will provide hard copies of the work to their students. Many districts in Ohio refer to the e-learning options as blizzard bags, a term for the bag in which teachers send the hard copies home. The state's Fort Recovery District submitted its e-learning plan last school year but didn't have to use it until this winter. The lessons the district offers with its e-learning days were designed so students could do them independently, so the parents at home wouldn't need to provide any more support than they would with homework. In this day and age, every district has some type of online presence. For us, it's just a great opportunity to continue the learning. For days where we can't make it to school, we still have electronic tools available to us. The various digital platform that this school uses also allows teachers to interact with students. Teachers can post videos with their assignments, or they can post notes. At Granville High School in Michigan, the AP Calculus teacher said that for the past few years she has used online technology to provide learning resources for her students to keep them up to date on the material. In a year where they've had 6 snow days, she finds it's a useful tool. When they find out there's a snow day, they send a message to students informing them we're online to find the day's assignments. Students just don't find a worksheet or a text lesson on file. They've taken videos of them teaching the lessons and working out sample problems. I feel like we get back to class, we'll still be back on track. I won't need to be rushing at the end. She uploads the video in multiple formats so students can watch the videos even from their smartphones. And before using would just be lost time. I would have to double up on things or would try to leave something out, which is very difficult in an AP curriculum. It's difficult in any curriculum. At the same time, she said the same technology is beneficial not simply for snow days. I typically take most of my classes. It's wonderful for kids who are absent. A big push to enhance its technology. The whole district is connected to Moodle, which is great. The superintendent says the technology has been a valuable learning tool both for snow days and regular days. So what they're doing is interesting because they are integrating the technology into their classes and then they can just use it. So, oops, I closed out my document. Didn't mean to do that. Oh well, I'm going to take a break here now. I'm at the end of my time for this video. So I'm going to go in and take my break and I can add my notes.